the plot thickens, and we find out what that's going to mean in a little bit. Anyway, we have the first presenter is a distinguished scholar, Dr. John Nixon. He's a professor of counseling at UNLV, and he's held an undergraduate in religion, master's in divinity, and a doctorate in counselor education. And he has had a professional life, has been straddling the academic world as counselor education, and then he's been practicing it at the same time in a clinical practice through mental health issues. And he's a 7th-year professor in residence at the counselor education program at UNLV. And his core of his identity is found with active involvement in his Orthodox Christian faith throughout his life. And most recently, John was ordained as a deacon in the Greek Orthodox Church. And his service is attached to his home parish of St. John the Baptist, Greek, in Las Vegas. So we have a man from this area of town again. So I'm so glad to welcome Dr. John Nixon.
I want to thank you for the promotion to distinguished scholar. It just really has a ring to it. It's kind of like not anything what I deserve. And in fact, I'm actually an assistant professor in residence, and I think that I will retire as an assistant professor in residence, given the timeline of my age, but also as you'll see 10 minutes from now, how I can have a way of peeving people off. So, you know, and since you have to vote for promotion in the university system, I think that's probably the thing. Well, there is. You need the compassion's important. So my life is at an intersection, and my title, by the way, it's up here. I changed the preposition. I know, you know, the discussion is all about pronouns these days, but I've been focusing on the preposition in this title the last 24 hours. So it is actually, it'll work better if I say Frenemies for Peace, Psychology and Religion. Okay. So my life is an intersection where I have one foot in the world of religion-based spirituality as a theologically educated Orthodox Christian and ordained deacon in the church, and the other foot in the university world of counselor education as a professor and as having a professional history of clinical practice, as my kind introduction had said. It is an intersection, if you will, where the traffic, so to speak, does not always go smoothly. Religion seems to be best appreciated in the academy when it has adopted the academy's values and echoes the academy's dominant narrative in a syncretistic fashion. As long as religion is subordinated in the academy or the state, then it gets a pass. The subordination is understandable in view of how the seminal founders of modern psychology viewed religion, amplifying pre-existing strands of Enlightenment age thought and setting them as a standard for secular society. As long as no one challenges, for example, the factually unfounded propaganda that most wars in the world are over religion, or that more people died in religious wars than others, then the religious get to enjoy a quiet seat at the table as long as they nod with agreement at whatever narrative is put forth. Sigmund Freud saw religion as a system of wishful illusions, denying of reality, and in general as a sign of neurotic behavior. B.F. Skinner ignored spiritual experience in order to focus on quantifiable behaviors. Albert Ellis believed that the less religious people were, the more emotionally healthy they tended to be. And on the other side, which I'd taken out for time reasons, we did hear of the positive contributions of Carl Jung, which I very much appreciated earlier. These negative views of religion are still dominant ones today across the social sciences, and they inform any conversation about mental health, despite the strong body of research finding a robust positive correlation between religiosity and physical and mental health. When we seek to promote peace in the world, mental health has a role to play. It's been said that the problem with conflict in the world today is that people on the whole aren't happy, and that happy people don't make wars. Therefore, the premise is, if people become happier, then the world will have peace. I think it's safe to say that especially since the global COVID lockdown, mental health has been centered as a priority throughout the Western world especially, though this priority hasn't contributed to greater peace in the world. Rather, the world has been awakened to a new normal of escalating military conflicts, domestic surveillance, silencing of voices, any voices that would raise concerns. As it is, any one of us, or all of us, perhaps, are on a government watch list. If we weren't yet, we are now, because we're all here talking about peace. While the basic premise of increasing happiness in order to decrease wars is not unsound and certainly makes intuitive sense, the whole of the situation is, of course, more complex. War making is a very profitable industry, and the American economy is now leveraged to military spending. 65 years ago last week, after President Eisenhower's warnings about the military-industrial complex in a farewell address to the nation, that alignment between government and the military industry, instead of being checked and controlled from his warnings, has rather grown into a beast that is beyond control or fail-safe, I'm afraid. Alarmingly, leaders are no longer speaking of international peace as a goal, but rather of rearming and positioning for escalation during a post-war period no longer thought of as peacetime, but rather as pre-war preparation. An outgoing British general said we should arm the whole population and ready them for a land battle with Russia. Thus, many world leaders now seem to be happy with the idea of taking peacetime out of the cycle in favor of war, but pre-war to war to post-war to pre-war to war to post-war, and so on, an endless cycle. So the largest spending here on military of these nations, the United States. That's the light blue, cyan. It would appear that George Orwell had gifted insight in predicting a future of perpetual war in the world as a way of oligarchical hegemony of power, because that power is not a means, it is an end, and the object of power is power. Orwell's vision of 1984 was off by 40 years, but in 2024, we can see his dystopian vision forming in concrete ways. If the object of power is more power, then the voice of religion, with its values of personal humility, responsibility, altruism, social cooperation, and welfare, has become sidelined effectively. Replacing emphasis on humility and nonviolence with self-importance and advocacy has co-opted even religious groups to cultivate a taste for perceived power and to crave even more. This is the kind of mentality that nourishes warmongering. I would submit to you that in the academy, the social engineering toward a militarized social mindset is being effectively promoted. Thus, collaboration between religion and the academy for promoting peace tends not to lead to any consequential synergy. Even at religiously aligned institutions, the approach tends to be that of tacit agreement with whatever the dominant voice in the academy happens to be, and critical independent thought is marginalized, if not punished. Our nation has been at war somewhere in the world continuously since World War II. Now we hear voices of protest urging more aggression in Southwest Asia and the Caucasus regions. Gone are the pro-peace rallies on the nation's college campuses of the 1960s. Apparently those student anti-war protesters are all now professors leading the charge to take the American cause of cultural colonization through military aggression in a systematic and perpetuating way of chronologically overlapping military initiatives around the world. The Academy doesn't seem consistent on what it stands for, since yesterday's peace rallies are today's war rallies. The realm where peace has most consistently over time been maintained the most traction would be in those religions that follow their historic, established emphases that were instituted with teachings on the importance of inner and outer peace for one to advance on their own spiritual path, and the strength in numbers of the collective religious experience where peace is mutually valued, and where those adherents on that path of spiritual growth struggle to make it real in their lives. This experience of prioritizing peace would seem to be found less in the collective interfaith experience, which appears to be dominated today more by socio-political agendas than by affirmation of each other's unique perspectives and experiences of transcendent reality. At a time when diversity has become a supreme social value, there's an odd lack of diversity, both in the Academy and in the interreligious collective. The colors are varied, but the voice is the same. While perpetual war is in full swing, the national and international interreligious organizations have been oddly silent. So the word doesn't seem to be getting out that a peaceful way to live is a better way to live, except within the silos of like-minded people. Between the Academy and the sacred spaces of religion, however, it does seem to be in the sacred spaces where emphasis continues to promote peace, beginning with peace within ourselves. The regular Sunday services of my own Orthodox Christian tradition finds the word peace used around 35 times in the Eucharistic service alone. In peace, let us pray to the Lord for heavenly peace, peace in the world, peace be with you. And so it is across the sacred ways of most religions, the bidding of peace, the prayers for peace, the seeking of transcendent peace which passes all understanding. I'm convinced that any design for peace will not come out of the Academy, because the Academy seems to have produced only greater discord and engineered human tragedies. The only peace they propose would be that which is a forced unity out of totalitarian control. I believe that humanity's best hope, rather, is found within those religions which affirm the spirit of peace and truth. Peace in the world comes out of the communitarian micro level, not the macro level. Thus, I'd like to conclude with sage wisdom from the spiritual tradition of my faith. Psychology will recognize this as cognitive behavioral. Elder Thaddeus of Vitovnica Monastery in Serbia wrote, "Our life depends on the kind of thoughts we nurture. If our thoughts are peaceful, calm, meek, and kind, then that is what our life is like. If our attention rather is turned to the circumstances in which we live, then we are drawn into a whirlpool of thoughts that can have neither peace nor tranquility. Our thoughts determine our lives." He echoes revealed truth that has been known for millennia, while science happens upon these revelations only in the modern era. That says something about human endeavors that exclude the transcendent. Thank you.